What defines success in life? Is it how much money you make, having a happy family, having a nice house? In Western society, success is mainly defined through the illusion of the American dream, where through hard work and determination, anyone can gain perceived success. 1 year ago, I decided to move out of my dad's house, and now I moved back. Some would consider moving back in with your parents a failure, and at first, I did too. But through this experience, I realized everything I've previously defined success as has been a combination of temporary feelings replaced by things or illusions, which is why I am making this video. I feel like everyone has a certain story behind their successes and failures, and if we can unlearn that certain story, we can get closer to our life's purpose. So wait, what actually defines success? Well, the Google definition of success is the accomplishment of an aim or purpose, in which accomplishment is just another synonym for success. So the definition of accomplishment is something that has been achieved successfully. Here we have what I like to call the success accomplishment paradox. Thank you, Google, for giving me nothing in my spiritual endeavors. When I think of success, I usually think of a task. For example, the other day I went to IKEA and I bought a shelf. 4 hours and many tears later, I built a shelf, and I would call that a success because I can now use that shelf and it has purpose in my life. However, when we talk about general life success, a lot of our accomplishments aren't actually determined successful by us, but by other people we have commitments to. Your boss, your family, your friends. In a way, I find our presence in other people's lives is very conditional based on the commitments we have to them. And how do we honor those commitments? Through goals. But the success of those goals is usually measured in one of two ways. Number one, numbers, and number two, labels. So far in this video, I've only oversimplified very complex topics you may or may not relate to, but to add some nuance, my own personal experiences with success have come from my childhood, and more specifically, my experiences with failure. Everyone's relationship to success has a story behind it, which is why in this video I included shadow work prompts you can actually follow along with. Everyone's talking about shadow work and healing your inner child, then try to sell you something. Bruh, it's right here in this video. So grab your journal and let's just get into it. There are two main ways we learn success in our childhood. Number one, through school, and number two, through our parents. Starting with school, success in school is measured one of two ways. Number one, academic performance, including extracurriculars, and number two, social status, or essentially if you were popular or not. Let's begin by breaking down the success of academic performance. I'm telling you this from the experience of growing up in the American school system. If you're from somewhere else, just apply your own experiences to this because God knows, U.S. education system is not the best example, but most grading systems in America are graded from A to F, where your abilities are measured based on the percentage of questions you answer right on tests or worksheets. Most education systems also presume a linear model of success, meaning the amount of effort you put in should be relative to the grade you receive. And as mentioned previously, many of our core memories of success aren't actually about success at all, but about our experiences with failure. For example, many of us have the collective experience of being grounded by our parents if we received a bad grade. That goes more into the home aspect of things. In school, you might have gone to detention, let's say. We are told in school to study more to avoid failure. To relate this back to the linear success model, I would argue that this type of learning style doesn't actually prepare most Americans with the tools they need to handle adult life. Even though that's the entire point of the education system, this conditions us to avoid failure at all costs. So many of us actually have a deep-rooted fear of failure. And I believe this causes curiosity and creativity to be almost dead in high school. I don't think high school was where my creativity blossomed at all. In my experience, it was really difficult to develop a healthy attachment to learning because we weren't actually taught the why behind whatever curriculum we were learning. We were just taught study history, study the dates and what happened, and that's that. But we weren't taught, okay, what can I use this for in my adult life? And not to be dramatic, but I believe this conditioning kills your inner child. I think humans are naturally curious and creative and want to learn, but we see in school that many people stop wanting to learn, they hate learning, they hate school, and they deviate from anything about it. And not to mention, depending on your location and socioeconomic status, you might have ended up in a lower income school district that doesn't have as many accommodations to different learning styles or disabilities. Essentially, we are taught a linear model of success going into the real world when not everyone starts on the same playing field. Essentially, the perceived success a child might have achieved has a lot more to do with their socioeconomic status and home life than it does actual education. There's only so much a teacher can do in the classroom to help a kid who is being neglected at home. Which brings me to my first set of questions. How did the education you received prepare you for the world today? What is your relationship with learning because of this? The main takeaway of this section is that when we apply the linear success model to our lives, we recognize that in America, the linear success model is non-existent, aka the American dream is not real. America does not guarantee perceived success just because you work hard. Essentially, it's easy to compare yourself to your friend who just got accepted into some prestigious college and is moving across the country and has her parents' help, and you're just stuck working a part-time job and in community college. It can be hard not to compare yourself, but the more we let go of illusions and what's not in our control, the more we can control what's right in front of us, which is our beliefs. To close out this section, I have one more question. What is your experience with this linear model of success? Where has this shown up in your life? Have you compared yourself to someone who seemed like they have more because of this linear model of success? Pause this and let me know down in the comments or in your journal. And that brings us to the second way success is measured in school, by our social status. Stop. Imagine you're back in high school. It's your first day of freshman year. You're looking around and you see them. The popular kids. They're all walking in uniform with their hair blowing in the wind. They all have football player boyfriends, and they're all extremely rich. Okay, you get the point. What's funny is we all know high school isn't actually like this, but this narrative is pushed so much in movies and TV shows that we kind of approach high school like this at the beginning, and it creates just a weird dynamic. And as a former high school advice girly on TikTok, I used to make videos categorizing types of high schoolers, and this was actually just a coping mechanism for me because I was so desperately wanting to fit in. And this is where labels come in. You don't want to be labeled as not cool or unsuccessful socially in high school. But even if you weren't like me in school and didn't have really bad anxiety, growing up, I guarantee you have at least one memory where you did something to please others that was actually out of character. So if you're following along, I want you to write down one time that stood out to you when you did something to please others that was out of character for you. How did it feel to be out of character? Why did you do it? And what's interesting is we're told that this high school behavior just suddenly leaves after high school, but I would beg to differ. Until you go back and unlearn it and stop defining who you are by other people, you are still going to subconsciously define yourself by whoever you're around. Especially in the digital world today, defining ourselves based on the perception of others is almost second nature. And to share my personal experience with this, I actually made a cartoon. As most of you know, I make videos about mental health and spirituality on my TikTok, but I noticed something very interesting about my mental health TikToks. I sometimes equated the number of followers I had or the number of likes I received to my value as a person. And it began this really unhealthy cycle of just projecting this ego out onto the world and not actually diving deeper and doing the work. So as you can see in this cartoon, we're all kind of plugged into instant validation that social media gives us. So here I am being vulnerable with the internet and telling people to find themselves when I am finding myself in a number. So here we have this little guy on the side saying, "Oh, you're so brave for talking about the things you're talking about," but I myself did not feel that brave. In fact, I was comparing myself to people who seem to have more than me and are projecting their own ego. But if you turn this little thing upside down, what you can see is this little shadow man saying, "Psst, the work is over here," talking about shadow work, which brings me into my next couple questions. We all have a story behind what we identify with, and these stories typically start with "I am." So I want you to write down your 3 most negative "I ams." And these are phrases that you might say to yourself when you're angry at yourself, when you're sad at yourself. You might say, "I'm unlovable, I hate myself, I sound like a fucking therapist." Oh my God. No, but every single time I am crying or I am angry, I am always repeating these phrases in my head, like "I'm annoying" or or I will literally tell myself to shut up and just be so rude to myself. Like, what's so interesting is you wouldn't let anybody else talk to you the way that you talk to yourself sometimes. So once you recognize that little voice in your head saying all of those things, you need to stop, because there's a story behind those I ams. So for each I am, I want you to write down a story attached to that negative I am. And how this relates to your version of success is the labels that you tell yourself have a lot to do with your drive and ambition. If you start projects but never finish them, why? Like, you might have a reason as to why you do that, because you have a negative I am, a false belief that is preventing you from overcoming that obstacle. Because deep down, you don't believe you're worthy for the outcome of that. You don't want to face that fear. When people talk about healing their inner child, they are talking about going back to those negative beliefs they had and negative memories and reevaluating them so you can inevitably let them go. Which brings me to the last factor of what defines your success in life. Your family. What family expectations were placed on you to succeed? How did those expectations affect how you react to failure? I'm not going to go too deep into the family one. I think I'm going to save that for an entire other video. On the screen, there's a lot more shadow prompts that relate to this type of topic, but I don't want to go through all of them because this is already a very loaded topic. So pause the screen and choose which one you want to write down. Shadow work is nothing to be scared of, but I feel like the biggest reason a lot of people are scared of shadow work is because they're scared of dismantling the entire person they thought they were. Like, who you are before shadow work is nothing like the person you are after shadow work. And just comparison real fast. Wow. The biggest thing that I've learned on this journey is to show myself compassion in the moments that I don't want to show myself it. Like, the moments where that inner voice is saying you're stupid or you're emotional or you're difficult, you need to just, give yourself a hug. Like, dead ass, give yourself a hug. If you're going through it and have nobody there, like, that is your ego trying to scare you out of doing the deep work to actually let that go. So if you're experiencing those emotions, you're on the right track. But with that being said, I know this video was loaded, but please let me know down in the comments what other topics you'd like me to talk about. And if you've been following my Moldavite journey, I'd just like to say I'm no longer selling Moldavite. I might post a Moldavite update soon, but honestly, I feel like this is a good, kind of like a Moldavite update. I moved back in with my parents. I am no longer doing business with Glossary LA. There's been a couple disputes about it, but I'm not going to go into that. Just know I am not selling Moldavite on her website anymore. But thank you to everyone who's supported me. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, check out my other social medias, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.